Hey painters, it's time to talk about paint. We try to talk about every single paint company under the sun, but today I really wanted to focus in on one of my favorite paints to use inside a home, Benjamin Moore Regal Select. So with that said, let's put the spotlight on this product and go over some of its pros and cons to help you make an informed decision. As you probably know, painting and renovating in general can be quite costly, so your decision making about the materials you plan to use can have huge implications cost-wise. As a painter and product specialist myself, I'm well aware that these premium products come with a premium price tag. So hopefully by the end of this video, we'll find out, is it worth it? If you don't know me, I'm James from thepaintpeople.com, and this is Spotlight. This is our series all about products and ultimately our opinion on them. I say our because there's an entire team of people working as the Paint People, all with our unique set of experiences, and we want to share them with you. Generally speaking, paint is normally sectioned off into various price points or categories, no matter what company you're talking about. And most of the time, these prices are reflective of the different qualities of that product. Normally, they're not arbitrary. There tends to be a you get what you pay for reality here. Regal Select tends to be categorized within the premium paint category, which means it's going to be more expensive than your contractor grade paints or even your mid-level paints. You can purchase this product in an exterior variant, but today we're purely talking about Regal Select's interior line, which is a set of paints that comes in 5 different finishes: flat, matte, eggshell, pearl, and semi-gloss. Flat having little to no sheen, and semi-gloss having the same amount of shininess as a standard painted interior door. So not necessarily a high gloss, it's just semi-gloss. All of these products have a lot of similar qualities to them, meaning they're water-based paints. More specifically, the resin type inside is 100% acrylic. So let's get right to it and go over some of its pros. Excellent coverage. When you use this product, you'll quickly realize that you're dealing with something special. It's marketed and branded as a paint and primer in one. I always tend to feel that there's just times where you can't replace the appropriate primer for a specific job. But generally speaking, for most standard interior paint jobs, painting things like walls that were previously painted with another acrylic paint, you should be able to use Regal as an undercoat as well. You just might be able to instead use a much cheaper acrylic primer that'll do a similar job at a lower cost. That being said, I've had many occasions where I simply didn't need to prime at all because adding that extra step of putting a primer on would have been pretty much useless and redundant. An example being, if I was applying a darker color on a wall, like the one being shown right now, I was able to simply apply 2 finish coats and the coverage was absolutely perfect. If I was using a primer straight out of the can, that white undercoat would have been pretty much useless, and I would have just been better off having my undercoat being that same darker color that I was going to end off on. I even noticed that after the first coat, to an untrained eye at least, the finish would have looked serviceable. But upon further inspection, you would notice a little bit of inconsistencies. But in many cases, I finished the job using 2 coats completely, where a 3rd coat might have been necessary if I ended up using my standard contractor grade paint. Coverage is such a crucial element of a good paint because it's one of those things that is an immediate return on your investment. You pay a little bit more money up front for the better product, but you'll have a much better experience overall when using it. You'll almost certainly use less paint, and in those rare occasions, you may also need 1 less coat altogether. And on the note of that user experience, let's go to our next pro, user friendliness. The experience of using Regal is very pleasant. If you've ever used a discount brand paint, no offense to anyone that does, some will have a thinner texture to them, which could present some issues. The first one being mess. If you're not careful with the level of prep you do prior to painting, you could end up with a ton of spatter and paint all over the surfaces that it wasn't intended for. Higher end paints tend to be thicker based on their composition of liquids versus solid components. And as you introduce more solids into the paint, it gets thicker. And that means there's going to be less mess and less spray, but also more durable of a finish on the walls. And therein lies our 3rd big pro, washability. What's great here is the level of durability that these products have. Are they going to have the same sort of scuff resistance as something like Scuff-X? No. Will they have the same level of impact resistance as one of your big industrial oil-based products or 2-part epoxy coatings? Definitely not. But when you're factoring in how and where this product is going to be used, it's more likely in just a standard home, in places like bedrooms, living rooms, dining rooms, even hallways. This product is perfect for those areas. What Regal does really well is handle repeated washings, which means you can actually get a damp rag or a little sponge or even a magic eraser and clean any grease, grime, even minor scuffs without affecting the finish. The color won't rub off, and it won't feel like some of your more chalky finishes that builder paints can tend to have. Like a lot of paints, as you go up in sheen level or shininess, from flat all the way to semi-gloss, you will have increased durability. Even the matte finish, which I have right here, called Ultimatte, its claim to fame is the fact that it's a very low sheen finish that is washable, which is kind of hard to come by. Normally, you would never put flat or matte finishes on walls because they tend to compromise on durability, but not this one. In fact, the Ultimatte finish is increasing in popularity on walls, even in the high traffic areas like hallways and kitchens. Now, you still have the eggshell finish, however, which has a little more shine to it, which means you do get a touch more washability. So you may want to maximize the level of durability with this, or you just might prefer the finish of eggshell too, which is great. There's really a long list of pros here, so I'll just quickly summarize a few additional positives. It uses Benjamin Moore's Gen X color technology, and that means the color within the paint will remain consistent for longer periods of time. You don't have to worry about the color fading after a couple of years. All these are also mildew resistant, which is great in your areas that have higher levels of moisture. That being said, there are other products like Aura Bath & Spa or Benjamin Moore's Kitchen and Bath Paint that are specialized for high humidity spaces. But the good news is Regal can still adapt to those environments as well. Also, if you're liking the video so far, it'd be awesome if you hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on future videos. Now with Regal, there's a lot of good stuff here, but I'm obligated to present the not so good as well. And for the first time on Spotlight, I really had to reach for some of these cons. Price. It's not the cheapest paint on the market. Far from it, actually. There will be a section of customers that will just not deem the price to be worth it. If you're comfortable with a product that is half the cost, and it's served you well for however many years, it may be a tall ask to switch to a premium product like this. From my experience, however, if you really start to factor in all of those quality of life increases that a product like Regal provides you, not only will you start to realize that maybe it is worth it, but in some cases, the benefits it provides can actually save you time and money. For me, Regal Select sits in a sweet spot of cost effectiveness, where it almost seems to punch above its weight class. It's not the cheapest paint, but it's also not the most expensive. So when you start to weigh your options, it really becomes a high value item in my eyes. Inconsistent VOC. This is really a small thing, but I wanted to clarify it for anyone that prioritizes environmentally friendly products. The good news is, these products are branded as water-based, low VOC paints that are green and safe to use around children and pets. And I guess adults too, because who doesn't want to protect themselves from harmful chemicals? But the important distinction I want to make here is that VOC level can vary from finish to finish. Ultimatte, Eggshell, and Pearl are all low odor, zero VOC products, which is great. But the flat and semi-gloss finishes do have VOCs in them. It's still a comparatively low number compared to the older products from decades ago, but they're technically not zero VOC. So you should remember that if you're very particular about chemicals, just be aware that flat and semi-gloss will not be free of those volatile organic compounds. And also, just as a little side note too, the Regal flat finish in the yellow label will have the least amount of washability, so just be aware that it won't really stand up to bumps and scuffs nearly as well as Ultimatte or Eggshell. Ultimately, I recommend Regal Select for the do-it-yourselfers and the contractors. This is definitely one for both pros and average Joes or Janes. Because of the fact that it's really easy to use, it does what it's intended to do at a very high level, and I think its pricing is pretty competitive, all things considered. Question time. Have you used Regal Select before? If so, what are your thoughts on it? Let us know down below. If you're curious to learn about Benjamin Moore's midline paint, we did a spotlight on Ben, which you can check out right over here. I've also used Ben quite a bit over the years. That's it for this one. See you on the next one.